Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So much of the money and the attention around public transit goes to metropolitan areas. Obviously, transit is pretty important for rural areas as well, particularly for older Americans and for those with disabilities. That's why I was so grateful, Ms. Maynard, that in your testimony you did talk about some of what's going on in rural transit, particularly with regard to folks with disabilities. So put a little bit more meat on that bone. Talk to us about the challenges that transit providers face in rural America that they don't face in big cities.
Thank you for that question, and I have to agree with you. When you talk about fixed route, I think generally comes to mind first and foremost is the able-bodied, the person that can get on a bus and go to work. But public transit, we do so much more than that. Paratransit is a big part of what we do, ensuring that the disabled community has the same access, the same access as everybody else to where they need to go. We know that rural transit agencies utilize public transit for the disabled community 50% more than other transit systems. And so...
okay, say that again. I want to make sure we're all hearing that.
So rural transit systems, their disabled community, they take transit 50% more than your urbanized systems. It's very important. It is a connection sometimes to, and I don't want to sound dramatic here, but to life. It is making sure that they get to where they need to go. And so
healthcare and employment particularly, if you don't have access to those things, it is really hard to live a full life.
That is correct. In Las Vegas, as an example, our rural provider, Southern Nevada Transit Coalition, we RTC are the local match. If not for the local match, the rural transit agencies have a very difficult time ensuring that funding is available to meet the needs of their rural residents. And so
let's talk about that funding. I would imagine that with FTA, so many of the grants are probably written with metropolitan systems in mind. Again, that's where most of the ridership and most of the dollars are. Are there things we can do to make sure that rural systems have a fair shake at FTA, or do you think things are good as they are?
I think that funding is critical now. You know, I came to the RTC 17 years ago. Prior to that, I was in the private sector. My job was to make money for the businesses that I worked in. I was surprised when I started working in transit that we don't make money. The model is one that expenses will always exceed revenues. And it is that public good serving customers in rural and urban areas that matter. And so that funding is not only the federal level, it's the state level, the local level. It's a three-pronged approach, if you will. But you can't say enough for, again, that funding it's necessary and it's ongoing and it could be better. And so to make it better, again, it's gonna require a price.
And almost certainly making sure that folks who are writing the eligibility criteria are keeping rural systems in mind, because it is, again, it looks very different. We've had some conversation about micro-transit today. I'm grateful for that. Ms. Hendricks, you've talked a bit about that as well. So from either of you, other things we should keep in mind with regard to, and I assume people who are moving toward micro-transit or in rural areas are also doing some fixed route. Talk to me about that transition. How far along are we? What will the next few years look like?
Well, in Southern Nevada, we had an area in Southern Nevada that was one of the fastest growing for 6+ years. We did not have funding to add transit there. Even though we got calls from residents and businesses, hey, I need transit for my employees, that sort of thing. And so we used some of the federal funding. We looked at this area and decided, we did a cost analysis. Should we apply fixed route and your traditional paratransit service in this area, or do we do microtransit? And our approach is sort of a love all, serve all. On one bus, on demand, we are moving seniors, students, paratransit customers, and fixed route customers. And that model has turned out to be cost effective. We're spending less in that model than we are in traditional fixed route of paratransit. So I think
a huge success story. Let's give Ms. Hendricks 30 seconds here.
Yes, similar to what Ms. Maynard said, I think when you look at commingling the services that are available, and there's also enhanced technology platforms that we've recently, some of our NATA members have implemented that allow you to do more on-demand and effective routing and scheduling and commingling those riderships in the same vehicle, that it remains cost-effective, but it increases the availability and access to those that are most need. So We're looking at that. We've, again, one of our NATA members in Lubbock, Texas, has implemented that with the proper software for RATP Dev, and it's really working effectively to maintain the same amount of cost or cost-effective, but increase ridership.
Well said. With that, I yield back.
Gentlemen,